So as I said a couple of minutes ago, my name is Amy Tarbox. I'm one of the career counselors. I use she, her pronouns. And I'm going to be talking to you today about resumes and building your LinkedIn profile as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to chime in. There's not a ton of us here, so you can just speak up and I can pause. I'd rather it be interactive than me just kind of talking at my laptop in my living room. And all right, so I'm gonna share my screen here and we'll get going on the presentation. Okay, so here we are, like I said, chatting about resumes and LinkedIn profiles for master's students. We are going to start with resumes. And we can chat about sort of the purpose of the resume. So the purpose of the resume is to motivate the employer to interview you, not hire you. Provide a really concise summary of your experience and background that's relevant for the job you're applying to. And provide kind of a marketing medium for really highlighting your relevant competencies, accomplishments, and skills. So it's important because it's a snapshot of you and what you've done, and it can be part of an application or it can be the entire application. So it depends on the company. And what should it achieve? It should achieve kind of be showcasing your most impressive and relevant experiences as they apply to the opportunity you're connecting with. It's going to display your experience and familiarity with the industry. It's going to highlight your soft skills through the descriptions of your experiences. We're going to have a nice list of your hard skills. And you're going to want to do all of this in a pretty short document. So unless you have quite a bit of experience between your undergrad and your master's time here at Brown, we're probably going to aim for 1 page. So we want to kind of assume that employers have a short attention spans. They usually do. They're probably going to look at it for about 15 seconds before deciding if they want to keep reading. And you really want to, so this makes you really want to make sure it's pleasing to the eye. It's sectioned really well, really good formatting that is going to really showcase your experiences and show them that you have the right experience for the job you're applying to. So we are going to create a glanceable, easy to read document. So as I said, 1 page only. We're going to want margins between 0.5 and 1 inch. We're going to aim for common fonts that are legible. So between 10 to 12 points, except for your name. And so that's, I wouldn't go smaller than 10. You never know how old your recruiter is going to be. So you don't want to strain anyone's eyes. Some good choices for this, Arial, Canberra, Calabrini, Georgia, etc. And we want these classic fonts that transfer well between PC and Mac. And we're going to want to make sure that the formatting is consistent throughout the document. And we're going to make sure that the most recent stuff is on top within the sections. So what can you put on here? Or what should you put on here? So we want to really think about your past experiences. It doesn't just need to be paid opportunities. It could be courses you've taken. It could be research opportunities, independent projects, internships, jobs that are relevant to the types of things you're applying to. You're going to really want to pay close attention to the competencies that are listed in the job description of opportunities that you're interested in. So there might be a few common themes. Say you're really interested in a career in scientific research, and so you'll look at those job descriptions for research assistants, and there's a lot of common themes there. So you can really make sure that you're reflecting what they're looking for in your resume. So what can you put on here? Like I said, job experience, internship, research, leadership stuff. So activities on campus, whether at Brown or previous institutions, you can include. Like I said, class projects, athletics. If there's volunteer work you do that's important to you and might be relevant, you can include that. Clubs, organizations, and then some honors, awards, scholarships if you have them, and those are going to be bundled under education. So let's get to the nitty gritty of it. So the header, so we're going to tell employer who you are and how they can get in touch with you. So some header tips. We definitely want to include your full name. If you have a preferred name, you can use that instead of your legal name. an email address. Definitely use your brown.edu one. You worked hard to get to Brown, so we can showcase it. And a phone number where they can best reach you for an interview. So try to provide only one phone number if possible. Optional is a mailing address. Brown or home, you know, who knows where we all are in the world at the moment. So, you know, feel free to just leave off an address, or if you're trying to find employment in your home, then definitely use your home address. And you want to include if you have it and want to share it, linked into your LinkedIn URL or other social media. So just think about what you would want to share with a potential employer. And if it's something that makes sense for you, say GitHub, if you're a programmer, you know, that's something I would definitely include there. And when we're formatting, we're going to want your name to be the biggest thing on the page. So it can, you know, usually it's around 20-point font. It could be a little bigger, a little smaller, bolded, usually centered. Your contact information can be on multiple lines or a single line, depending on how much space you're trying to take up or save. And this is the same header you're going to use on your cover letter. So, oops, we had a sample there. Huh, that disappeared, I'm sorry. We can just jump to getting to the education section, and I can circle back and I'll find the one with the contact info, but I mean, you can kind of figure out what that looks like. I don't know how much you really need me to share that one with you. So moving on to the education section. So the Brown entry, education after your name and contact info should be the next thing on the page. You're currently enrolled in an academic institution, so that's where you are right now, and that's what we want to be highlighting next. So we're going to have your education section, you know, what degree program you're in, when you're expected to complete that program. Obviously, you'll have Brown in the Providence, Rhode Island location, even if you're, you know, working from elsewhere, you know, Brown is in Providence. And then we're going to talk about what your focus is and some courses you've taken. And I realize you may have just arrived on campus and the coursework hasn't really gotten finalized yet. And so as that does, you can include it there. And then if your master's thesis topic is in development, you can have a working title listed. If you have it figured out, obviously mention it there. And then we're going to kind of jump down to your previous institution or institutions. And so you'll set it up the same way. So you have your Bachelor of Arts in whatever, or Bachelor of Science in whatever, where you got your degree from, where that was located, when you received that degree. And then if you have room and if your undergraduate work was very relevant to the types of things you're moving forward doing, you can set it up just like you would the Brown entry here. Next, we're going to jump down to skills and interests. This is usually at the bottom of the resume, but it gives you a chance to show off your technical and language skills and give interviewers something to break the ice with. So here are hard skills we would want to be listing. So we have the technical computer skills. So, you know, we assume that you know Office, but if you want to list it or if it's really clear in all the job descriptions that you're looking at, you might want to highlight it. Also Adobe programs, you know, some of the like MATLAB and some of those types of, you know, platforms that are used in engineering and data, definitely include those if you have them. If you're on the science end of things, you definitely want to include your lab skills, equipment techniques you're familiar with or certified in. If you're a CS person or have CS skills, the programming languages that you're comfortable programming in a interview. So say you're really comfortable with CSS and Java and you have some exposure to Python, you should say that. You don't want to get yourself stuck in a position where you're asked to code in a language that you're just a little familiar with in an interview. It's just not going to feel good. If you have design skills, I would include them there. And that's pretty much kind of the hard skills we would be listing under sort of like technical things. And so when those are the first thing we want an employer to see, those will go under the education. That's usually STEM, CS students. Otherwise, it will go towards the bottom of your resume or be the last thing that's in there. You don't want to list any soft skills there, communication, team player, any of that stuff. That stuff's going to come through when we're describing your experiences. So we want to be showing the reader of your resume that you have those skills instead of telling them that you have them. Next, within that skill section is languages. So any language you speak. It's assumed that you speak English. You can say bilingual if you like. And then we also included a nice little list of proficiency, how to kind of rank your proficiencies and how it's sort of understood in the work world when you mention how familiar are you with the language. So this is kind of just a good rule of thumb if you have multiple languages that you speak. And we want to make sure that you're not exaggerating it. You never know who your interviewer is, what languages they speak, and you don't want to get caught off guard with them trying to conduct an interview fully in a language that you maybe said, you were a little more overconfident in how you ranked it in your proficiency, because that's not a great way to get off on into an interview. And then the last thing we would include in that section is interests. These are usually things that aren't academic or professional. 3 to 5 is a pretty good number to include there. We wanted them to be kind of fun things that you'd be comfortable talking about in an interview. It could be a nice conversation starter. It also kind of lets you add another layer of your personality in that might not come up otherwise. And so that might really resonate with the potential employer, and that can really work well for you there. Okay, so this is how that one would look. And we have the skills and interests. So we have languages first because this person speaks quite a few, so we're going to lead with that. And then they have their technical skills. And then finally, they have their interests. So I think this is a nice, easy way to do it. I've also seen technical come first and languages next. It depends on what types of things you are heading towards. So next, for any questions, actually, before we move on to the body? Resume? No? Okay. So next we move on to kind of the meat of your resume. So this is organizing your past experiences into some sections based on role type, skills, or industry. And so we're gonna be using section headers to do this. And then here's your entry. So this is just kind of how that's gonna look roughly. And so here are the headers. So, there are labels that indicate what type of industry experience or skills you have. Here are some great examples here. We have the, hard and soft skills, so leadership, tutoring, design. You might want to bundle things by industry. You do want to avoid kind of bucketing things by if you got paid for it or if it was a volunteer thing. You really want to make sure that there's a theme that comes through when you're talking about your sections. And we have a whole bank that I linked to in the comments of this talk. So feel free to click over there. You should really be telling what you've done, but also kind of what you're aiming for. So really want to make sure you're highlighting the competencies that you have in your existing experiences as they line up with what you're looking to do. You can have only one entry in a section, and the headers can be a bit of a stretch. You can kind of bundle things together. It could be something like marketing experience. And, I spoke with a student who worked at the gym at Brown and also got to take on a project where they got to create a little mini campaign to get more people to come to the gym. And so, the bulk of their work there was checking people in at the gym, but they did get to do that project. So we could kind of include that under marketing experience on a resume, kind of that example there. And then we want to make sure the most relevant section is first. So that would be after your header and your education. That's where we want the things that are most relevant to that job you're applying to. So say you're looking at 2 different types of jobs. One of them is, let's just say, marketing, and let's say the other one is more like government and politics. You could have those 2 sections, and depending on what you're applying to, you can just kind of flip which section comes first. So here's how we're going to be formatting them. So like I said, we're going to want to put the most recent stuff on top. We're going to want to have on the left-hand side the organization and title. On the right side, you're going to have the location and the time period. There's just a little technical tip there on how to get things to separate the location and time period. You can abbreviate the time period into semesters/seasons. So especially this works well if you happen to have had an internship that was maybe a little shorter than the full summer. Say you did something in June and then you did another internship in July. you can just say summer for those, and that, you know, as long as you have kind of a substantial project, it's kind of less important how much time you were there. And then it's also really great if you're, you know, a TA or you're doing research, and it might be nice to kind of bundle things by semester versus by actual, you know, September to December. And then if you have had multiple roles within one organization, you can put it under one entry. So we're going to have the name of the organization, and then, you know, kind of set up the top of it as we would with other ones. And then within it, you'll have kind of like what your title was, then the information about your title in bullets, and then your next title in the same deal. And so it looks like this if you're going to do multiple opportunities underneath one. And if not, this is just a really good example of kind of how to set it up in general. So this person was an engineer, and they were a mechanical intern in their second internship there. And that was the dates for that. You know, they also could have just said summer 2016 if they wanted here. And then here's the bullets. And then, as I said, they were also an intern the previous summer, and this is what they did that summer. So it's just a way to save a little bit of space and also show progression within the organization. You can also do that with activities on campus. You know, say one semester you know, are kind of a general body member of an organization, and the next semester you take on a leadership role. You can kind of show the progression, which is also really nice for employers to see. Okay, so this is probably the most important part of the resume, is how to nail the bullet points. So we want to be telling a concise story about what you did and if it had impact on that organization. So we want to think about your experiences, you know, in the context. What was the project? What were the goals? What did you do to get from A to B? And then make sure you're listing your outcome. How did your work or input help advance the goals of the organization? You're always going to want to start each bullet point with an action verb. We have a really good bank of them. That's also in that link that I sent you in the notes. And you want to pay attention to tense. So make sure anything you're still doing is in present. Anything you did in the past is in past. Say you've been with an organization for a while and one project is completed or two projects are completed, those can be in past tense. And then what you're currently working on can be in present. And so an example of, you know, putting that type of thing together is, you know, you edited product images for a 7,000 plus product catalog for an e-commerce platform launched by utilizing Adobe Photoshop. So you know, you're leading off with the action verb, you're being pretty specific about what you did. You putting a number in, if it's possible at all to do that. Definitely always include numbers, results, and then what was it for and how did you do it? So like I said, you want to quantify as much as possible, and you want to be economical with your space. So using more space and words on things that were more meaningful or more impressive, you know, things that maybe were a longer time ago or aren't as relevant, those can be shorter entries. You know, it can even be just one bullet or two bullets. You know, as master's students, you know, you may have or may be working on publications or presentations. So make sure you're including those as well. You know, those can go, I would do that above the skills and interest section. So that would be like kind of the second to last thing on there. Or if they're really relevant to what you're doing, it could even go a little bit higher. So say you have research, you know, say you're kind of on the science end of things, you have your education, header education, research experience, and then underneath that you could do publications, presentations, and then say you also have leadership and community engagement underneath that, and then it would go skills and interests. So I think it depends on how relevant it is to what you want to be pursuing, where it goes, but you know, try to keep it as close to the top as possible if it is very relevant. So you want to make sure you're including any projects or publications that you participated in and bolding your name when listing publications. So you just want to be brainstorming past experiences, group them into relevant section headers, using that tip sheet. And here's an example. So this is, it was an undergraduate example, but it's still something to kind of see how it looks for leadership. It could be anything, you know, is this person trying to break into a career as a percussionist? Probably not, but it showed that they were a great leader for an organization that they were involved with during their time in high school. And also the, you know, same with like being an art teacher for kids. That just shows some other things about their skill set that might be relevant to the types of things they're applying to. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for a sec, and I'm going to see if anyone, let's see. Yes, the slides will be, I'm going to answer my questions, and then any other questions if you want to speak up while we're in this little break between topics. I will include a link to the slides in these notes as well. And then someone had asked if you can list your current or future classes that you're taking so you can apply for summer 2021 internships. Yes, underneath the education section and under Brown, you could say, especially if you just arrived here, you could say, you know, currently enrolled or courses currently enrolled in, and list them out there. You could also break that out by fall, you know, 2020 and spring 2021. So you can definitely say, here's what I'm going to do. And that's the way to handle that one. And yes, Hardy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you doing?
All right, excellent, excellent. My question is pertaining to work experience, and if you've had somewhat of an extensive kind of work history. My current resume extends to 2 pages, and I know we were just opening up the discussion, or you open up the discussion with a brevity, you know, really looking for that 1 page and putting your relevant experience up at the top. What do you think about omitting some work history that's not relevant, but then trying to explain the gaps in years, if there are years gaps there?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, you know, if it's really just not relevant at all, you know, you could kind of have a other experience section that is just the 2nd page. And that way, if they miss it, they're, you know, they're not missing like things that are relevant to them, right? But then you're still like, then you have to, you know, explain the gaps. You know, I'm not opposed to someone who has work experience between undergrad and grad having a longer than 1 page resume. I just would want to make sure it's very front end loaded with what you're working on now and what you're working towards now.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent.
All right. Let's see, another question. Is it preferable to include undergraduate GPA? Yes, absolutely. That's a great thing to include. And can I talk more about showcasing soft skills? Yes. So that's going to be all in those bullets, right? So you want to think about the soft skills that, you know, maybe they're listing in that job description, or maybe they are really looking for, you know, kind of like not being super specific about, but you know that they're looking for someone who is a great communicator, or someone who, you know, the nature of the work is team-based. So you're going to want to make sure that you are continuing to kind of showcase that. So let's say they're looking for someone who's great at teamwork or has a lot of experience doing that. So within your section, maybe you're talking about an internship project that you had during undergrad, and it was a 3-person group project. So you're going to want to say, you know, led team towards, you know, whatever piece of it you owned. So say you owned the, it was like a business development project. So you say, like you could say, drove team of 3 towards X, Y, and Z, or, you know, managed team of 4 interns with results of blah, blah, blah. And so it's just making sure you're really like looking at those types, like what skills are really important to them. And then like kind of almost like re-looking at your experiences or rethinking your experiences, like, okay, so how did I really showcase my leadership in that position or during that time? And then think about how that can get sort of woven into the the kind of the bullets underneath your entries. There's some really good examples that, you know, the master's resume samples for humanities and STEM that I sent out. And then even the undergrad ones, you'll really kind of see the flavor that comes through there. You know, maybe they're looking for someone who's, you know, like has a lot of experience in research and like, you know, different methods of that. I mean more like quantitative, I'm sorry, it's a long day today, qualitative and quantitative. And so you want to make sure that you're like kind of showcasing both of those within the like explanation of your research there. So it's really just kind of stepping back and thinking, what are they looking for? Okay, let's make sure that that's being showcased here. And so anytime you managed a group of people or you worked in a collaboration with others, like that would be a great, like, here's what you did. And then the end of that bullet is in collaboration with 3 other interns, or in collaboration with professor of whatever. And so you want to really make sure you're focusing like on what you did first and then with who. And then that's going to show, did you work with a high level researcher or a high level exec on something? Like, let's showcase that. Or was it part of a team and you were really successful? So make sure you're kind of including that little language, and that should be sort of towards the end of those bullets. Unless like it was the managed thing. Like if they're looking for someone who's more of a leader, then that you want to make sure you're leading with the managed, and then and the end of that could be like as part of a team of 4. So like you, and then with who is another.
Also kind of going off of what Hardy already asked earlier. So yeah, if you do have like certain things that are just not relevant to what you're applying for, like is it actually like the better thing to do to like have a longer resume and putting it in the back versus just not having it at all?
So, I mean, I think if you're completely changing, changing fields, it's really okay to leave that stuff off. A resume, it doesn't have to be everything you've ever done. I would make sure your LinkedIn has like kind of accounts for, I don't want to say like holes in your experience, but accounts for maybe times if there's like a year or 2 that wasn't reflected on your resume, you want to make sure that that's sort of covered in your LinkedIn. And we'll get to LinkedIn in a second. But I would probably focus more on, here's all the things that are relevant to what I'm applying to now in this one really nice, short, easy to navigate resume. And then, I also have a, full resume. Like if you want to see everything I've done, you can check out my LinkedIn, or you can just, you can go on to the second page. So yeah, I think I really focus on getting that first, the 1 page of like everything that's super relevant, nice and clean. You can have the other stuff on there. Like I said, I think bleeding onto a second page doesn't bother me too much, because they're not, if they get there, they get there. And if they don't, they don't. But I think the one place I would make sure it's all reflected is on LinkedIn.
Okay, because like it's still like pretty important that like that your resume be, like not too jam-packed, and that it's like easy to follow and stuff like that.
Yep,
right?
exactly. Yeah. So we don't want you like jamming in things that aren't relevant just to show that you were employed.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not, like people care about that less, I think, than especially right now, right? Let's see. So
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Sorry to interrupt. I had a question. So some employers require you to mention your CGPA in the resume. So for undergraduate, I had a CGPA, but in Brown, we don't have a CGPA. Like you have letter grades, but no CGPA. So how do we go about mentioning it?
So you need to calculate it on your own, because Brown is Brown, unfortunately. So, you can just 4.0 is A, 3.0 is B. If you took something like S and C, it doesn't count into that equation. So, that's unfortunately, we advise that you have to calculate it on your own. And organizations understand that, they know Brown doesn't provide a GPA. So it's like, they know that this is something you've calculated on your own. You'll pull your official transcripts and have that, like they have access to that too.
Also, my undergraduate CGPA was out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
So would you suggest that I convert it to 4.2, or it's fine if it's out of 10?
I think it's fine if it's out of 10, if you just make sure that's denoted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's there.
Yeah, you're totally fine. Yeah.
All right, then.
Okay. I didn't want to cut you off. I'm sorry. Was there any other?
Oh, no, it's all right. No questions.
Okay, cool. Someone said they didn't receive any materials. So in the chat bar up top is the resume samples, the tip sheet that include all the banks of the action words and of the section headers. And then I will also share with you the slide deck in the chat when we're done. I'll leave it up for a little bit. Was there anything else I wanted anyone needed? No.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
All right, so under the education section, I've seen online where people use the word candidate, like master's candidate. So does it matter if we include that word, or you can just leave it out because you're already gonna say expected graduation?
It's totally up to you.
month?
Yeah.
Okay.
whatever you're comfortable with. It also depends on space, how you think it looks. If you want to include it and it looks good, go for it.
Okay.
That's no problem at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hardy, did you still have your hand up for a different question? I don't want to cut you off. You're good? Okay. And then someone also asked how to draft an email to send to recruiters along with the cover letter and their resume. So that is something that it's very specific to what type of organization you are reaching out to. So if it is say you're like a CS person and or even anyone really reaching out to work at a startup, it can be much more chill than it would be if it was a company like a Microsoft or a Bain or a Goldman Sachs. So if it's a smaller organization that like definitely is in that kind of startup category, it could be as simple as, dear so-and-so, I'm very interested in your organization. Like say it's a company you just love, like you love what they do. Then you can like kind of say something about that in that brief little note. Here are my materials. I'm applying for this position. Thank you so much. I hope to hear from you soon. It does not need to be a long thing. You're already writing a cover letter. You already have your resume. It can just be really short, but it should just be, a quick, one line on who you are, what you're applying to, something you like about that company. If there's something really that stand out, it couldn't, like I said, I've talked to a lot of people who are like game developers and they're like applying to work at their favorite game company ever and are like so excited that they just can't even like control it. And so they kind of just like, fanboy out in the email, and that's totally fine. I think startups really love it if like, their product and what they're doing, like they get pretty excited too. But like I said, larger companies, I probably keep it more like just the facts. So, hey, I'm a, master's candidate at Brown studying this, I'm applying for this opportunity. Here are my materials. Here's my resume and cover letter. I hope to hear from you soon. I'm very excited about this opportunity. So that one can be pretty quick. Did I answer that?
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I have a follow-up question on this. So some companies, at least for CS, they don't require a cover letter when you're filling out on their website. They just directly want your resume.
Yeah.
So the thing is, in my situation, due to COVID, I'm doing fall 2020 semester online outside of US, and I'll be coming next semester on F1 visa. And since an internship is a part of my degree program, I'm eligible for a CPT. So how do and the thing is, in my resume, I'm given my international number, like it's not a US number. So how do I mention in my resume that I'll be on F1 visa from next semester in a much nicer way, and I'll be eligible for CPT?
Yeah, I think I think it's just obviously we all know it's a very strange time. And so I think people are much more kind of just open to wherever you are, and it doesn't matter as much. I think when you're applying for an opportunity, unless they say, US citizens only or something like that, right in the materials, I don't think you really need to bring up, it's covered with your OPT. I'm sorry, your CPT. I think that's something that they can kind of, like, we'll get there later. So I don't think you need to necessarily write it. I think the phone number you have is the phone number you have. It's international because you can't be on campus right now, and a lot of people can't, and it's sadly normal at the moment. And so I wouldn't worry too much about that. I don't think that's gonna keep you down.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I think the links you posted was probably at the start of the Zoom session. So anybody who joined in later cannot see the links.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it doesn't. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't get saved.
Oh, all right. I don't want to say I'm new to this, but I'm still learning. This is like the first time I've posted all the links. I'll just repost everything down below. And then if anyone doesn't receive the materials, you can email me directly. It's just Amy_Tarbox at Brown. And I will send everything out again if I need to. I'm happy to do that. So here they are again. So I have the resume tip sheet here, which is the banks of the headers, some samples, action words, that kind of thing. And then we have master's resume samples for the STEM side of things, and then the humanities, social sciences are bundled together. And they're also all on our website. So if you want to go to the Career Lab website, not Handshake, but the actual Career Lab website and the career education section, there's a link there that will pop you over to like resumes and cover letters. And there's all this information is there as well. And I'll include the slide deck at the end too. Okay, so any other questions on resumes at them or related things so far?
Hi, I have a question. Hi, so thank you so much for hosting this. I have a question as to if you attend, say, like a recruiting open panel sort of session, and the recruiter like gives their email and says, email me if you have any other questions. Is it appropriate to email to sort of ask to have that one-on-one chat, even if you don't necessarily, I mean, maybe crafting a few questions, but is it appropriate to actually email someone knowing that you haven't yet submitted an application to their organization?
Yes.
And that's advisable.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think I would make sure you had like questions that you couldn't have sort of, found the answers to, but from a quick website search or something like that. You want to really make sure you're asking something specific, either about the actual opportunity or something that wasn't really made clear in the session you attended, or from, that's easily located, kind of in the public domain. So I would make sure the questions are around that. It also could, if you don't want to, and so then you can just say, oh, can we set up a time to chat quickly? I'd love to learn more about XYZ.
That's appropriate to say something like that.
Yep, absolutely. If it is more just you kind of really like that company and you want to, just make sure you get your name in and you're fired up, and let them know you're fired up, you can just say, hey, it was so great meeting you at the panel. Just want to thank you so much for, taking the time to do that. It was really helpful to meet you. I'll be applying, in the next week or so, and hope we can, hope to be in touch with you in the future. It can be something as kind of benign as that.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of how I'd approach it. But yeah, I mean, if they give you their contact info, like, do it. It's just one more way to kind of stay top of mind and kind of set yourself apart, because not everyone is going to reach out. So that's kind of where I would go with that.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. I'm going to pop over to LinkedIn, and then I'm going to, obviously we have time for more questions at the end. So those can be on anything career related. Don't feel like they're only like bucketed towards resumes and LinkedIn. But thanks for bearing with me. I feel like I'm going longer than usual, but it's the addition of the master stuff, which I love. Okay, at any rate, let me get back to sharing my screen. Okay, so we are popping over to LinkedIn profiles. And what's great about LinkedIn profiles is if you've done a good job creating your resume, it's pretty much going to be very similar content. So if you're not already on LinkedIn, and I suspect most of you are, but if you're not, here are some reasons you should be on here. So we're gonna, it really helps you establish your online presence in a professional way. It supplements and sometimes replaces your resume. So like we were saying, this is great for those people who have work experience between undergrad and grad that isn't necessarily relevant. We just want to show them what we've been up to previously. So it's a great place to be able to do that. And it's going to help you connect with alumni at Brown and your previous institutions, as well as former coworkers, employers, etc. So it's a great way to kind of keep track of everybody. And you can apply for jobs through there. So you probably already know, but if you don't, there's awesome jobs and internships on LinkedIn. And so it's a great place to be kind of trolling for those types of things beyond what's on Handshake and kind of what are on other sort of general platforms. And it lets you do some research on prospective employers, so you can see how many people work there, who those people are, do you know any of them, what's up with the company, kind of what do they push out as far as their branding and materials that are important to them. And so it's a great kind of one-stop shopping for your research on prospective employers. Okay, so getting started. So a couple of things to just remember. You don't have to have all the sections completed to start using it. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, we can just use your resume content, throw a photo up there, we can add and refine later. We don't want anything to hold you back from starting to use it. And so let's get started on the creation. So number one, using a professional picture. So these are two pictures of former Career Lab student workers. Maya is, she's in a PhD program right now. And so her professional picture almost looks a little more academic. It's like, oh, there's a nice stone wall wherever she is. It must be an academic institution. I'm being silly, but I feel like it's just kind of more like outside. It's a nice photo. You know, she's not wearing a suit, you know, that kind of thing. And then there's Cameron, who's definitely on the business end of things, and he's suited up, and it's a very clear, like, business focused headshot. Neither of them are wrong answers. It's kind of what makes sense for the type of things you're applying to. It's also really kind of personal preference. So those are just kind of some 2 examples there. Like I was just saying, you want to dress appropriately. So you don't have to wear a suit, definitely business casual, or if you're, you know, a scientist or, you know, something like that, you might want to, you could like be in a lab and maybe you're wearing a lab coat, or, you know, something that just sort of makes sense for what you're headed towards. You're going to make sure it's a good quality photo. You know, these don't need to be professional photos. So don't feel like you have to go have someone take a headshot. It could be just a photo you really like. You know, phones take awesome images now, so we don't have to get too crazy with big professional cameras and professional people. But we want to use a good quality photo. Make sure it's well lit. It's not grainy, a little more recent. You want to make sure it is kind of closer to you. So it doesn't have to be right in your face, but it should be just a view. You want to make sure it's not clearly cropping people out. I've actually seen a ton of people who were clearly at weddings with dates or others that they just cropped out of their LinkedIn photo. And also they forgot to crop their cigar out or their beer. So, you know, just kind of pay attention to that kind of stuff. And you should try to use a current photo. So if you know, your hair color or facial hair, et cetera, changes significantly, you'd want to update your photo just so it's kind of staying consistent with who you are at the moment. So I'm kind of lame and used my dog to create a profile to use as an example. So this is Doug. He's actually at my feet at the moment. So it just here's kind of his overarching introduction section of his profile. So on LinkedIn, you know, you're going to be using this little pencil graphic to be updating things here. So for your basic intro section, you know, first and last name, location, your current position is going to default to a student at Brown University. You know, Brown will be on there. Obviously, you can add other institutions you've attended. And you do want to select an industry because it's really going to help make your feed more relevant to things you really want to learn more about. And so, oops, sorry. There we are. So this is just kind of how they have it set up. The headline, like I said, it defaults, actually the headline doesn't default to anything. The current position defaults to student at Brown University. But the headline, you know, if that's not something you're comfortable filling out, don't bother. If a lot of people do use it as a kind of a way to connect what they've done before and where they're headed or what their studies are and what their kind of ultimate hopes are. And so that's a great place to be able to use that. You know, obviously you want to pick your location. So, you know, you can pick Providence if you want, if you'd not rather be, but if you are home for whatever reason or near home, you can use that as your location. And this is where I was saying pick an industry. This is really going to be helpful for your feed. Contact info. So if you want to include an email address there, you can, or if you have a personal website or GitHub or any of that kind of stuff, you can include that in here. And a summary is also an optional section. You know, I did use it to highlight some of my dog's special skills. But, you know, you can skip that or you can fill it out, whatever you're more comfortable with. So I'm going to give you, for the headline, you know, it's going to default to your current title and employer. You do have 120 characters to personalize it with. And so if you want to do this, you can start with a description of what you do and then kind of keep refining and making it more specific. What the heck does that mean? There's some good examples here. So Dani has kind of an interesting career path, and I like how she just made it into one sentence, using the power of behavioral science to improve population and individual level health. That's pretty clear. You know, I like how she led with an action verb like you would on any resume. And I think it's a great, just kind of a great way that she's talking about her work. You know, Nathaniel is a little more first person here. graduated from Brown with a degree in math. Now I do market research at Stacks. Sure, that's easy. And then he also did, a quick little, like kind of got a little bit more into his summary. So, it doesn't have to be that long is my point with the summary. It could be even more direct and short. Marcus, that was it. So this is what he was doing. This is what he's doing after graduation. So there's that. And then Camisa, these are all Brown alums. I just like how kind of, her experience is super varied, but I like how she just kind of made it as simple as she could. Like, here's the common theme. I connect ideas and communities. And then work I've done is multilingual communications professional. That's what I've been up to. So you really have a lot of freedom in these. You've also seen kind of the variety of images people have selected, not just for their headers, but also their personal images. Marcus went a little more woodsy. Nathaniel didn't do anything. And Dani kind of a little more businessy, people focused, which is interesting. So the summary section. So like I was saying, again, you don't have to do this. If you want to, though, it's a great place to really showcase more about you. Most intimidating thing to write, probably, but it does give you the chance to tell that more detailed story. So you want to use the first person there, no more than 3 paragraphs. You want to use white space, a tab around, and you want to treat it kind of like a mini cover letter. So you're going to be telling a brief career story, and it doesn't have to be something you've already done. It could be kind of where you're headed. You're going to want to make sure to proofread the heck out of it. And if there are keywords that make a lot of sense in your industry, make sure you're kind of weaving them in there. And here's some examples. This one I like. This person actually isn't from Brown, but I really like how they kind of led off with a quote that resonated with them and then jumped down into, here's kind of the business ends of things, and then here's what I do on the side. And I just like they're at the end, at the end of the day, I aspire to be the happiest, most successful, and best version of myself. Like, this says a lot about that person. They're sharing a quote. It's like learning more about what matters to them. And then you have kind of the nitty gritty of like what they've been doing, what they're studying, what their internships were, a little more on kind of things that mean a lot to them from a kind of outside of school work. And then sort of this, at the end of the day, it's all about happiness for me and being the best version of myself. And so I think that's really, this is like I think a really fun example of how someone really used it to like kind of let potential employers and others in to sort of what they're about. Here's one that's another good example of this person doesn't necessarily have a linear career path. And so she explains that, I think really well, and does a great job of kind of connecting. I mean, she's obviously a storytelling person, so I'm glad she does such a great job. But I like how she just kind of like pulled out what's the common thread between everything I've done, and let me tell you about why it makes sense. And I also like her call to action at the end. How can I work with you? Then we can add some other, this is where we would add our work experience, our education, if you have licenses, certifications, volunteering, all this stuff, skills, accomplishments, everything there. It's all, add to profile section, and here we are. So you can kind of go through that and do it as much as you like. So here are some more listings of what these other sections are. Accomplishments include publications, certifications, patents. If you've taken classes, Coursera class or any of those kind of more like online institutions that maybe you've taken to kind of hone in on a special skill, you can include that there under accomplishments if you want, or you can include it under education, whatever makes more sense. You can list your languages using the same proficiency scale that we use in the resumes. And then, as far as organizations, definitely list any honor societies, professional associations, or Greek organizations you've been involved in. Just those are things that, people who share the same organization tend to want to help others who have it. So it's another nice way to kind of connect with folks. And then the last thing you're going to do after you've completed your profile is, create a personalized URL. So this gives you the opportunity to get as close to just your name as possible. And you just do that up here. So it's a really quick kind of overview of the LinkedIn profile. But, it's not that different from doing your resume. So once you feel really good about your resume and how it's showcasing your work, you can, like I said, essentially use the same content and sort of flip it over to LinkedIn. And then if you want to really dig in and write that summary and write a catchy headline, that's great. If you don't, that's okay too. And some final thoughts, you know, we're here for advice. At the end of the day, all these decisions are yours. We're sharing what's worked for students in the past, but if you have a, you know, a gut feeling on one thing or another that you want to include and it's important to you and maybe it's not relevant to what you're applying to, that's totally fine. Don't feel like you shouldn't include something that's meaningful to you and your path. Also, don't hesitate to include jobs, you know, food service jobs, retail jobs, those kind of positions, or anything that, you know, might not be viewed as like career jobs, but more, you know, work jobs. You get so many great skills out of those. You know, food service, waitressing, you know, that's where I kicked off my career. I think I learned a lot about managing chaos and having kind of a humorous attitude towards stressful situations. And so those are skills that transfer no matter what you do. And the same with retail, you know, mean customers, dealing, you know, food, if you're on a phone bank somewhere, working that kind of thing and people are mean to you and you deal with it, like that's a great skill no matter what career path you're on. I hope people aren't mean to you, but they might be at some point. And so it's good to just kind of know how to deal with that, and that will come through when you're explaining those jobs within your resume. So don't be ashamed of anything you've done in the past. It's all really valuable experience that's going to make you a great employee no matter what direction you go. Doing all this stuff, it gets easier, so be patient with yourself. And you can make an appointment through Handshake with any counselor or email Bev Eric. She's our grad student, kind of the career counselor in charge of grad students. So you can email her directly with questions as well, or make an appointment with any of the career counselors. We're all happy to help you. Just kind of a note too on just sort of where we're at. I'm gonna get out of my sharing screen here. Kind of where we're at with COVID. You know, it's a weird time and everyone knows it's a weird time. We're all in weird places that we might not be at this time of year. Usually I'm, like I said, in my living room with my dog, and my daughter might run through at any moment. So hang in there. But you know, I think it's just kind of giving yourself a lot of grace on, you know, maybe it would be a time where you could be doing more towards actually applying for things, and maybe there aren't things out there right now, or maybe you find yourself in a different location than you hope to be. And that's just what's happening now. And everyone's going to understand that. If they're like looking at your resume, you know, in 6 months or in a year, everyone knows what's going on during this time frame. So maybe, you know, hopefully you'll get exactly what you want, but maybe you wind up with a different opportunity than what you were hoping for. No one's going to look down on that. You know, everyone understands what's happening. So just kind of give yourself some slack there if you can, little breathing room. And also if there's other things that you know, maybe would in more traditional times be doing, and you're looking for something to fill it instead, you can really like go to town on your documents, you know, like spend a lot of time on your resume, a lot of time on your LinkedIn profile, get it in a really great place. So when things sort of loosen up or change or get better, hopefully, you know, you'll be ready to hit the ground running. So just have grace with yourself if you can. I know it's easy for the career counselor you've never met to say, but just trying to give yourself a little grace. And if you feel like taking advantage of this time to build out your documents, you know, that's awesome. And we're here to help you and let us know anything we can do to help you there. If this is something you're like, okay, I did that workshop and I'm not going to think about this now for another 6 months, that's cool too. Like whatever makes sense for you. But we're here to help in any way we can, career related. So keep in touch with us. Are there other questions or anything career related I can get to? Yes, Hardy.
I know we're winding down a little bit, so this might be a little bit of an open-ended question, but I appreciate everything you've given us so far. And as it pertains specifically to the LinkedIn profile, you get a lot of information out there outside of academics that talk about, you know, hear that catchphrase, building your brand. Yeah. You know, and what that actually means. It means a lot of things for a lot of people, but within our environment and maybe what we want to present to future employers or people we want to network with, how far, if there's a range, how far can you really go when you start talking about a brand or thinking about LinkedIn specifically as a marketing tool for yourself, as opposed to your resume, which is maybe a little bit more closed-ended, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, no, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think where the brand building can come in is really like that summary and that headline, and that's like, what do you know, here's all your past experiences, but what do you want? What, you know, what about you aren't we talking about or seeing in that experience so far? You know, maybe your goal is you're going to build your own company around whatever topic, you know, I mean, I'm sorry, I should have asked what you're studying, or, you know, maybe that's like your goal is like, you're super entrepreneurial, you always have been, here you are, you're here to get this degree to do this, and it's going to like push you into the stratosphere of whatever. And that's awesome. And so that's like, yeah, let's start building that brand now. So maybe you're not saying like, here's my company idea, because, you know, that's probably, we want to keep that on the DL, but, you know, you can really be, you know, starting to kind of plant the seeds and think about like, what do you want to be known for? What do you want to be known as? Or like, what's your area of expertise? And so, yeah, that's definitely a place where you can kind of build that in. And then, you know, you can like try to like, maybe your images come along with that. So maybe,
Right.
you know, whatever, you know, again, I don't need to know your business idea, or we can talk offline because I love startup stuff. And
Okay.
we can have a whole nother meeting about that. But, you know, like maybe that's like where we're looking at, you know, maybe the color, you know, you're starting to like market what your brand is going to be as a company.
Right. That's
right?
what I mean.
So, yeah. So like your, you know, the background image could be what your logo is going to be, or like at least like hint at it, you know, and it could be maybe your
Some seeds.
Yeah, just start kind of sprinkling it. And then that will sort of start building there. But yeah, I mean, it sounds ridiculous. Like, you can have fun with your LinkedIn profile, but like you kind of can, you know, I mean, you want to make sure you're including all the info, but you also can, this is where you can inject some flavor. Like, who are you? Like, what's your personality that you want like people to start understanding? And so that's where I think you have a lot of opportunity there. And if it's something like you're like, is this too risky or whatever, like shoot me an email, like we can look at it together, and, you know, we can figure out what the goal is and how we're building the staircase to the goal. Yeah, no, I think it's a great opportunity to do it now. Why not, right?
Thank you. I appreciate everything you've given. It's great.
You're welcome. It's so nice to meet you. Does anyone else want stuff? No?
What's that?
Does anyone else have any
other
questions? Any other stuff here? No. All right. Excellent. Okay, I will include the slides. And if anyone needs anything, I'm always reachable. Just Amy Tarbox at Brown, so I'm the only one. So feel free to shoot me an email and questions, and I hope to see you all again remotely or in person at some point. All right. Thank you.